Well, hi there, hello, and welcome back to the PitchGrid. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of our show. We greatly appreciate it. We are a podcast that gives news, opinions, insight, and analysis on the NFL or American football and the EFL Championship, which is the second tier of English football. So without further ado, we've got a loaded episode today. Let's jump right on into it and let's head grid side. I want to first give a little bit of context to this. So we're going to talk about the Trey Hendrickson situation. So going back a few weeks ago to the owners' meetings, Katie Blackburn gave some comments about how basically Hendrickson needed to shut up and play and accept the contract offer they were giving him. And then, of course, McAfee had Hendrickson on the show, and Hendrickson basically said it was very hurtful and he didn't appreciate how the franchise was treating the contract talks. Well, now, fast forward from that point, we have some updates from Hendrickson himself. Hendrickson has claimed that the Bengals have cut off contract talks. He showed up to practice a couple of days ago and basically gave an interview where he said he will not play on his current contract if this is how it's going to be. He said the team has refused to up any offers. They have not tried to trade him. They have not tried to adjust anything. They have stayed put with what they had back when he gave the comments on the Pat McAfee show. And to be honest, that's totally fair. I don't blame Hendrickson at all for saying he's going to hold out for the year. I mean, this is a franchise in the Bengals that they do not care enough to make it worthwhile with a player who was the league leader in sacks. May I remind you, Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks last year on a defense that was abysmal. It was so bad that it kept a very good offense out of the playoff. Like, what in the actual yuck? How do you keep single-handedly handicapping a quarterback that has generational talent and a receiver who has generational talent and a defensive player who has generational talent and has been nothing but loyal and good to your city and to your franchise, and spit right in their face and say, no, we want to be cheap. We want to be financially fiscal. Well, that's all well and good, but that's not going to help you win any championships anytime soon. Yes, you extended Chase and Higgins. I don't care at this point. To me, that's almost a PR thing at this point. You give Chase all the non-QB money and throw it at the feet of Higgins, so you improve the offense. You keep trying to make the offense better. You try to keep making it almost a death machine where you have to basically outscore you, but that doesn't help when your defense is basically the definition of a grocery bag. Good night alive. I get so frustrated because this is a franchise that deserves something. They deserve to win. This is a city that is crying out for a championship in football. My word, the fans have been nothing but patient. They've been nothing but loyal, and yet they see their owners do this crap on team players that are so good, that are essential to building a championship team. And they see these other franchises do it. They see the Chiefs pay Chris Jones. They see the Raiders pay Max Crosby. Nothing matters. And it's so disappointing. You're just going to waste careers. You're going to waste another great window. And this is why Carson Palmer left. Let's be honest. This is exactly why Carson Palmer left. He got the exact treatment, except that time I think the Bengals were more focused on defense because of Marvin Lewis being there. And now it's all the offense. And it's just mind-blowing how stupid you can be to just not give a good player a contract. Yes, I know the cap is real. Yes, I know there's constraints to be had financially. But you're a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl, supposedly. You aren't acting like it. You are acting more like a Jacksonville Jaguars who just happened to get to the best players in the game right now, in the league. Joe Burrow is listed with the likes of Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen as the top quarterbacks in this game. And yet, people wonder why he is getting undervalued more and more. It's because the longer his career goes on, the more he has to carry this entire franchise on his back with Jamar Chase. And that's only going to happen for so much longer. He's getting closer to 30. How much longer are they going to put up with this? If I'm Burrow and Hendrickson leaves, because there have been reports, Ari Myrov has reported this, that Joe Burrow has said he wants Trey Hendrickson in that locker room, and if not, he is going to riot. Those are the reports that Ari Myrov is saying. If that is true to any extent, and Trey Hendrickson leaves, this could be an implosion of a locker room that is already tenuous. When you have a defense that is just bad, when you have an offense that feels like it's doing all the work. This is the 93 Oilers with a slightly better offense and less dysfunction. I'm not kidding. It is just mind-bending how incredibly dense this ownership group is for the Bengals. All right, moving on to a slightly less triggering topic. We had Derrick Henry getting a 2-year, $30 million extension yesterday with the Baltimore Ravens. Great news for him. He did so well last year. He had 1,921 yards and 18 touchdowns last season. Insane stats. 25 million of that 30 million is guaranteed, by the way. He is the first ever running back over 30 to get a huge extension like this. One of the top 2 running backs in this league, him and Saquon. I would still say Saquon's number 1, but Henry's not far behind him. This is how you do it, Bengals. This is how you make room for a star player to be locked up for the foreseeable future and still try to win a Super Bowl and build around someone. That's how you do it. You don't just be passive. You attack. And Eric DeCosta's done it again with the Ravens. Great job by him to get this done before he became a free agent and to make sure there was no speculation, no anything. Just, yep, we're going to take care of our own. Simple as that. And I can't imagine how Derrick Henry must feel that he's valued at a franchise that wins. And I'm not saying any disrespect to the Titans because I know they valued him a lot. He was their star player for so many years. I'm not saying they didn't value him. I think they did. I don't think the Titans handled his contract situation correctly. The Ravens are. You need to be so good at handling cap in this league nowadays and making sure, you're dancing the contract extensions and the restructurings and all that. And in this day and age of the NFL, that's what you had to be good at as a general manager. And Eric DeCosta is one of the best at it in this league, without a doubt. Him, Howie Roseman, Brett Veach. 3 of the top managers in this league. Not even close. Good for Henry getting I want to say something, but it's not that. The safety and security of being locked down for the future, knowing that you're going to be in a franchise and you will probably have your peak years there. And of course, running backs have a very short shelf life. So who knows how long his shelf life is going to be. I would not be shocked if by the end of that 2-year extension, they're ready to be done with him because he might be starting to decline a bit. But still, right now, when he's at the top of his game, absolutely sign him. Absolutely lock him down. Great stuff by the Ravens. All right, well, we have the biggest news to talk about was yesterday. The schedule dropped, and that just means it's one step closer to the 2025 regular season. It is so exciting to have this kind of thing back because you know that means the season's just around the corner now. Fans can start planning their trips, their season tickets, their what game do I want to go to? Can I go to this game? And that's huge, exciting part of the season, knowing that it's right around the corner. Training camp's only a couple months away now. So exciting. And let's go to some of the key takeaways. So this is always a stat that comes out that it piques my interest a little bit. The Chiefs had 7 primetime games this year. Eagles have 6. Falcons and Packers have 5. I'm shocked the Falcons have so many. To be honest, yes, I know they're a kind of intriguing team on the playoff bubble this year. Why the Falcons? I don't know what exactly networks see in the Falcons this year, but hey, I mean they've got Michael Penix, they've got Drake London, they've got Bijan, so I mean they've got good players, but I don't know if you could exactly say they're 5 games worth of prime time. The Ravens, Bucks, Dolphins, Steelers, Rams, and Bucks all have 4. It is interesting to see that the Bills are not higher up on this list, let's be honest. I kind of wonder if CBS, and I'll have to go back and look at the schedule, but I think the CBS has kind of claimed the Bills more for their late afternoon slot, which is fair because they want to showcase Allen, especially since CBS is the one that hosts all the AFC games in the late afternoon slot. So I can probably see why. It just feels weird that the Bills aren't higher up considering they're one of the top teams in the league. Ravens are there. Bears, they're a very intriguing team this year. Rams, of course, they're also a playoff area team, and so are the Bucks. Dolphins, I don't get as much. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I do like how they kind of are getting some attention too, because I do feel like that is a situation that is starting to brew, considering the Tua situation. Mike McDaniel is probably getting close to being under a lot of scrutiny by ownership. So it's very intriguing to see those things come to light. The one thing, okay, so we're going to get right here to this. Browns and Saints have 0 primetime games, right? I have no problem with that. Those are two teams that do not look like they're going to do much this year. No problem, like, right? I mean, yes, it might be cool to like highlight Kellen Moore's new leadership in New Orleans a bit, but I still don't have any problem with those two teams not getting primetime games, even though I do think teams should at least get one primetime game, and that used to be a thing on Thursday nights, that at least one primetime game for each team. Thursday nights used to be a thing where every team got a chance to be on primetime. But now, not so much. Now it's more about what team has the better ratings, all of that. The Titans, to me, this is the disrespectful one. Titans have 0 primetime games. Why? They had the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. Number 1 overall pick. And you're not going to showcase your top pick of the draft? Why? I don't understand. This is a team in the Titans who had a great draft. Yes, they weren't great last year, but who cares? This is a team that has a lot of promise. This has the number 1 overall pick again. Why are you not showcasing this shiny talent in Cam Ward that everyone hyped up at the draft and the combine and pro days, but now all of a sudden that's just dead? Nah, I don't believe it. I think Cam Ward's worth at least one primetime game for a franchise. You want to supposedly market the entire league, but yet Nashville, which is a big city in the States, is not getting a single primetime game, even at home. I don't understand. This is why I feel like every single team should have a primetime game, gives the entire league coverage, gives them all an exposure to the world, because this is becoming an international brand. The NFL is an international brand, and yet you're not showcasing one of you're not showcasing 3 teams, actually, that could be exposed. Granted, like I just said, Browns and Saints do not feel like they're going to do much, but still, the Titans have a bit more leeway because they have the number 1 overall pick in Cam Ward, and yet they are getting disrespected again. This is a franchise that, ever since they left Houston, has not been valued by this league, and I feel like that is a crime. Really, I do. I feel like they should get more attention than that. And they got more attention during the Derrick Henry years, but I feel like they at least deserve a primetime game. Even if it's the Jaguars again, like we have every week 18 Titans Jaguars, like why not have that as your primetime game to showcase Cam Ward? Just show, oh, this is our shiny new number 1 pick. That is frustrating. I feel for you Titans fans. Sound off in the comments what you think, but I feel like the Titans at least deserve one game to be out there. The holiday games, so Thanksgiving, we have Chiefs, Cowboys, Packers, Lions, and Bengals, Ravens. And then we have Bears, Eagles for Black Friday. My favorite game of that slate is Bengals and Ravens. It's a classic twice last year that went right down to the final seconds, and I don't have any reason to believe that won't be that way again because they're 2 division rivals. They know each other so well. The Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. Bengals are a playoff contender, and these are 2 very good teams that will be clashing on a national stage, and I love it. I am so excited for that game on Thanksgiving. Christmas, we have Commanders, Eagles, Chiefs, Broncos, and Lions, Vikings. My favorite game of that slate for the Christmas ones, I would say the NFC Championship rematch between the Commanders and Eagles, just because it's an NFC Championship rematch, like I just said. One of the teams almost went to the Super Bowl, one that did win the Super Bowl. So you're showcasing a great matchup right before the end of the season that could have huge seeding implications. I would say also a close second, Chiefs Broncos, because of the same reasons. Game right at the end of the season that is between 2 division rivals that could have huge seeding implications at the end of the season. Whether it be for the division, it could be the Chiefs want to lock up the 1 seed, or they want to lock up one of the top 4 seeds, or they want to lock up the division, or vice versa. Maybe the Broncos want to lock up the division. Maybe they're trying to lock up a playoff berth, and they need this game. That could have so many implications, and I love that kind of game. Lions Vikings, it's not that I don't like it. I just feel like we don't know what the Vikings are going to be quite yet. They're such a wild card, but the Lions we know are good. I mean, they could take a slight step back, but who knows? I just don't know exactly where to think about both teams. We kind of know Eagles, Commanders, Chiefs, Broncos has a lot of potential for both to be good. So who had the hardest schedule? I don't know. It's a very tricky thing to me, at least. I don't put much stock in the what is quote unquote strength of schedule stats that a lot of like the pundits like to look at, because to me that feels very subjective. But I mean, if you just look on paper, I would have to say the Browns, Bears, Lions, Giants, Texans, and Chiefs all had pretty tough schedules coming out of this. They have rough stretches of games. I would say they also have a lot of tough opponents. Chiefs, like I said, have 7 primetime games, for example, and they're all against like really good teams. They start out with the Chargers and Eagles. Like that's an incredibly tough 2 weeks to start out, and one's in Brazil, no less. The Browns, I felt like they had the hardest one to me. Just looking at that schedule is like I'm looking at a murderer's row, and already they're going to be bad. We could easily see this team going 1-15. I don't doubt that. I mean, yes, they have Shedeur Sanders, they have Dylan Gabriel, all that. I don't know if that's going to be enough to carry you past a murderer's row schedule like the Browns have. Of the easiest schedules to beat, I thought the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Bills, Jaguars, Saints, and Niners all actually have manageable schedules, like the Saints and the Jaguars. I don't know if they'll be able to navigate and take advantage of that, but like the Bills, they could easily take advantage of this kind of schedule that they have, where they don't face a ton of teams. I think it's like 6 top quality teams in their entire schedule. And then the Patriots and Dolphins, they each have like 5 really tough games that I could just look at off the top of my hand. And to me, the Bills, if they take advantage of this schedule fully with the MVP on their roster, and if they can utilize their receivers well, they could be the 1 seed. This is a schedule that's an easy path to the 1 seed if they can take advantage of it. If they don't, and they have another stumble like they did a couple of years ago, then they could easily take a lot of egg on their face for that. But I think this is a schedule that right now on paper looks easy for these teams. Patriots, I think it's a great schedule for them to have coming right after a great draft in their first year under Vrabel. This is a team that everyone's saying could be contending for the playoffs. With that kind of schedule, yeah, I could see it. If they take advantage of it, they are a team that the potential does come out and is taken advantage of. The talent that is on that team, absolutely. I feel like they could be right there in the playoff mix. So, with these schedules out, what kind of hot seats do we have going into the season? I would say there are 3 coaches right now, to me, that I feel like are very much on the hot seat. Those are Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll, and Dave Canales. Now, this very much depends on what your perspective is on these teams. I feel like Mike McDaniel, to me, is on the hot seat because he has not won a playoff game. He has not used the full roster potential that the Dolphins have had in the last few years to win a Super Bowl. That was what everyone has pegged Miami to be the last few years. And yet here we are. They have not won a playoff game with McDaniel in charge. Brian Daboll, of course, he's had a dumpster fire with the Giants. If he doesn't do well, I think he is canned. Him and the general manager both. Dave Canales, I put him on this list just because I feel like the Panthers right now, they got a good draft. They took a step forward late in the season with Bryce Young, but if they do not take advantage of that and of the free agents they signed this year, because they signed free agents to try and compete. I think that's why they signed the free agents they did and cut some of the fat that they did with the players like Jadeveon Clowney, that the front office is expecting that this is a team that will contend once again, maybe for the division, because this is a division that isn't too competitive. Most of the time it's 8-9 wins, usually wins you the division, but we'll have to see. I think if I were to say who were to be sacked first or fired, however you want to put it, I would say it depends on what happens this season. The Dolphins have an easy schedule, like we just talked about. If they do not maximize that easy schedule and are not in contention for the playoffs near the end of the season, I think McDaniel is fired. I really do. I think not making the playoffs one year and not winning a playoff game with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle, with the talent they've had, I think that's a criminal offense. And yes, Mike McDaniel might be a genius offensive guy, but I don't think if he misses the playoffs again, he's a fit for Miami. And I think he'll get fired because of that. Unfortunately, he's a great guy, it seems. It just doesn't feel like it's going to work out with Miami. However, Brian Daboll could get canned easily if it's a bad start. Let's just say the Giants get off to a 1-6 start, right? The offense is bad. Attendance is going down at MetLife. I think at that point, the Giants owners are going to say, yeah, I think we've had enough. Even though they just drafted Jackson Dart, it feels like 1-6 start could be an easy recipe for a firing of Brian Daboll. And the same could be said of Canales. Like, if they start off horribly again, like, Canales was a huge risk by the Panthers to hire him. And if you don't take advantage of a growth in Bryce Young and the weapons you now have in Teteroa McMillan and Hunter Renfrow and Xavier Legette, then I think that's fireable. And I think the Panthers are a trigger happy enough ownership that they could do that. So, with the schedule out now, do I see any upsets in week 1? I think this is difficult. I think there's a lot of games that you don't see a lot of, like, quote-unquote upset potential on, just because either they feel like teams that are too even, or teams that are like one's really good, one's really bad, or one could easily beat the other. However, if I was to pick one game that would be an upset, I think it would be the Falcons over the Bucks. Why? It's a division rivalry. These are two teams that play each other very well most of the time. They are teams that have a lot of spice in it when they play. They always get heated. Just go back to the Grady Jarrett missed call game where Brady got sacked. It was called roughing the passer and became a huge trigger moment. I think the Falcons are good enough that it's week 1. It's at home for Atlanta. I could see it. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. And with the Bucks huge favorites to win this division, I could see it. I really could see the Falcons pulling off a week 1 stunner, maybe making a statement. And maybe that gets them off to a good start. Who knows? I would love to see that kind of an upset week 1, because that's the kind of week 1 shock. Otherwise, like, not many other games this week feel like an upset in week 1. So let's fast forward to the end of the season. We've talked about week 1. Let's look at the end of the year. What are some matchups that could be huge in terms of seeding? Well, let's start week 16. I think we have the likes of Eagles Commanders. We talked about that earlier. Christmas. Well, yeah, Christmas. Packers Bears, and Rams Seahawks, and Falcons Cardinals. And then week 17, we have Broncos Chiefs, Eagles Bills, Ravens Packers, and Giants Raiders. And then week 18, we have Cardinals Rams, Commanders Eagles, Chargers Broncos, and Ravens Steelers. So let's go back to week 16. Eagles Commanders is a huge divisional matchup between two teams that a lot of people are pegging to be the two dogs at the top. Because they play each other within the span of 3 weeks, twice, one of these could be a watered down matchup, one could be more important, one could not, so take it with a grain of salt. But if this division is within a game, if, say, the Eagles are only a game ahead of the Commanders for the division, both of these games could be really important in terms of not only just the division crown, but in terms of who can get a better seeding. Because let's just say the Eagles win the division, right? Let's just say the Commanders are going to have a good season. I think we can all maybe assume that. Then you'd have to say that if the Commanders lose it, they are going to have to go on the road instead of being at home for at least one playoff game. Meanwhile, the Eagles, a lot of people are saying they're going to do really well once again. I think they will. Let's say they win the division. They could claim the number 1 seed with this kind of game, and vice versa. Who knows what could happen? The teams can be really great one season, and the Super Bowl hangover happens. Anything can happen, and it's just, I think this is 2 games in 3 weeks that could be huge one way or the other, or that division for the NFC in particular. Same with the Packers Bears. Like, this is a rivalry, also another divisional rivalry too, that could have huge implications on playoffs. Like, the Bears are widely thought, I think, to be playoff contenders. Like, they're right in the mix for the playoffs. And so are the Packers. I think we all are going to say that the Lions probably will win the division, but the Packers and Bears are right there in terms of will they make the playoffs? And this is a huge rivalry that could have that kind of implications. The Bears have a lot of good talent. They got a pretty good draft overall. They had some great moves in free agency. So what's to say they couldn't be right there at the end of the season? And Packers as well. Even if the Bears aren't, the Packers might too. They improved and had a great draft as well. So they could be right up there in terms of winning a playoff spot with this kind of game. That could be huge momentum going into the end of the season. Rams Seahawks is also a huge divisional matchup. Again, playoffs implications are galore. Seeding, maybe even getting into the playoffs. I think the Rams are also contending for the division with the kind of offense they have, if they live up to the potential of that offense, they'll be contending for that division. The Niners are there too. The Seahawks are probably going to be right at the cusp of the playoff discussion, and that's where you have to wonder if they can make it. Falcons, Cardinals are also in the playoff cusp discussion. Cardinals were there, the Falcons were there most of last year, and the Cardinals even at one point were in contention for the division last year. I would just say look for that one maybe in case the Cardinals do repeat last year and go on a bit of a run and are right in the thick of it again, because I think they could. They have a very young, exciting core to me, so I would not be shocked if these two are playing for their playoff lives with this game. Broncos-Chiefs is a division rivalry we talked about earlier. Eagles, Bills, two Super Bowl contending teams that could determine number one seeds for their respective conferences. Eagles win, maybe they win the number one seed. Bills, like we talked about earlier, have that easy schedule. This is that tough game that could really say, hey, we are contenders. We are good enough to compete with the best team that won the Super Bowl last year. If they win, maybe they win the number one seed. Maybe they clinch the division. It's next to last week of the season. Who knows? Ravens, Packers. Ravens could also be contending for that number one seed. They're playing against a team that will be on the cusp of the playoffs. Maybe the Packers slip up the Ravens. Maybe vice versa. Maybe the Ravens kill off Packer playoff hopes. It's just so many implications for that. I did want to slip in Giants Raiders here because that could be potential for two top 5 picks, depending on how Geno Smith does in Vegas. Some people think he'll be good. They think the Raiders will be decent this year. I'm not sold on it yet. I want to see how Geno does and how the rest of that team fares. They have Genty. They have some other questions, I think, on both sides of the ball. But this could be the Giants maybe sealing a top 5 pick with this game. Maybe even top 2. Who knows? Cardinals-Rams also is a division rivalry as is Commanders, Eagles, and Chargers, Broncos. That all have playoff implications, I think, in terms of who can maybe get the 7th seed. I could see the Chargers or the Cardinals both contending for the 7th seed or the 6th seed at this point. And the same thing with Ravens Steelers. Like the Steelers could be right there as well. Ravens Steelers is such a classic rivalry. It's always usually a good game to watch. So these are huge, massive implication games that I feel like you should circle and keep an eye on. And maybe you're going to see some. And maybe this doesn't even impact other teams. Maybe this impacts the loser of Cardinals-Rams, for example. If the Cardinals lose, maybe they help another team get into the playoffs because of that. There's so many fascinating implications that a game like this can have, especially in the final week when you have everything to play for, everything to lose. Some teams, because they just, for the fun of it, decide to go chaos mode and help another team make the playoffs. It's crazy in week 18 sometimes. We see that with like the Lions-Packers game a couple of years ago when the Lions tried against the Packers. They won, and the Packers missed the playoffs. And that was Aaron Rodgers' final year, by the way. And we had that classic Jamal Williams, Dragon Ball Z, I think it was, introduction. So classic. That's the kind of game you could have where they might not make the playoffs. The Cardinals probably won't make the playoffs, but they'll help someone else get in because they don't want the Rams to have a better seeding. They don't want the Rams to be in the playoffs. Just that kind of fun divisional, I want to make you hurt for playing us this week. So schedule release announcements are always such an interesting crapshoot, I think. You always get some good ones. You always get some bad ones. What were some of the best ones? What were some of the worst ones? Let's start with the good. I like to always start with the good stuff. The Chargers, they are the gold standards at this point. They did a Minecraft introduction one. I thought it was excellent. They had a map that you went through that just showed the schedule week by week by week. And it was so cool, so well done. The tweet as well, where it said, should we do a Minecraft one? And it's yes is making up a no. I thought it was very well done. The Chargers are just the gold standard of this point of social media in the NFL. More social media interns at NFL need to be like them. The Cardinals also had a pretty cool one. Linebacker Mac Wilson, he did a self-wrapped introduction called Rocket Ship. It was really good, and the entire wrap had the entire schedule in it. Very creative. It was written by Wilson himself. Go check it out. It's really cool. Falcons had a Mario Kart inspired release, which I thought was really cool. The Bills, Josh Allen saying use AI, and the guy unintentionally misinterprets just use AI for saying, oh, let's use Allen Iverson. And Allen Iverson helps them release the schedule. That was so clever. I loved it. The Jets used a computer program to paint iconic New York scenery and history into an entire landscape, like They had a dolphin painted into the side of a ship and other cool Easter eggs if you want to go check it out. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I thought it was cool just because they had some New York scenery and some history involved in it. I'm a history person. I love it when people do that. The Niners had an Oregon Trail inspired theme, which I thought was really cool. The Commanders also had, based on theirs off Carnival Tycoon, I think it is the game, or it's the Tycoon game you see all the time that people like to play with theme park. I think it's Carnival Tycoon. I might be wrong. Sound off in the comments if I am and rate me up for that. The worst ones, okay, some people might give me flack for this, but I did not like the Bengals one. It was just literally a 30-second video that just said, this is our scheduled release, and it was a slideshow briefly of each opponent in like 10 seconds, and then it was over. To me, it wasn't my favorite. I thought it was just rather brief, rather abrupt, and it felt weird to me. The two I really hated, though. The Bengals one is meh. I didn't like it. It's okay. It wasn't the worst of the worst, but still I didn't like it. The ones I hated, the Browns had Brownie Elf use magic tricks and like he could control time like he was Doctor Strange or an Avenger or a waterbender, and he didn't even do the release right in terms of like week by week. It just felt so weird and like, what in the world are you trying to do with this kind of schedule release Browns? It felt very Browns-ish. It felt like a why moment for me just watching it. The Broncos also, this was really weird. So the Broncos had children with helmets, like masks to protect their faces and all that, like they're riding bulls, right? And each helmet had a logo of the team they were representing. Well, the Broncos decided, hey, let's have these children ride sheep like they're bulls. Well, every time the children fell off the sheep because the sheep are running rampant, the guy who's announcing kind of just does a crummy pun every time the kid falls off a sheep. Like, what in the actual world? It just felt so weird. It felt tone deaf to me at times, but the puns were very dad joke type. I don't mind a good dad joke, but it felt so weird, so wrong. I just did not like that one at all. Why are you having children ride sheep? Sheep? Why? I guess to protect the kids, but still, I didn't like it at all. So I wanted to get into something real quick. This is a hot take for me. The leaks are just bad. Well, let's get rid of the schedule leaks. Can we all agree with that? I saw a few comments from people on social media, on Discord, that were saying that the leaks ruined the suspense of the schedule release, and I agree. I do not like how it basically you feel like the schedule's already out by the time the schedule release show is there. I feel like the suspense is a good thing. Yes, I know that's part and parcel of social media these days, but I just don't like it. I like having the suspense. I don't like knowing exactly what's going on for the schedule release. I want to know all at the same time, and it feels like a success. Like, yes, I waited. I was able to wait. I was able to find out all at once and then digest it. I feel like the EFL does this a lot better with their fixture release day. I feel like they keep it so close to the chest. It's so well done. And then when it comes out, everyone just loves it because everyone's been speculating for weeks like, oh, I would love this matchup in week one. Well, it's not that one when it comes out and everyone's like, oh, cool. I can see why they did that. And people debate for the whole day. It's really cool. I think it's really well done. And this is another reason why, if you're an NFL fan, check out the EFL Championship. It's so much fun. It's so cool. And there's a lot of good suspense in it too. Check it out. All right, international games. This is something that has sparked a lot of conversation in NFL circles, especially with the more and more the game has gone global. The games are good for the global exposure of the game, right? It does take away because there were a few people I interacted with that were saying that it takes away from the home fans' experience and getting to see those matchups in person because it takes away a home game for some of these teams, and for others, it takes away an experience of traveling to another team stadium. For example, the Jaguars are often in London. You know, that usually is one or two games taken away from their home fans, and that feels like a disservice to them. So I can see that, but also the international fans love it. Like that is a great atmosphere. Look at the broadcasts of like London, Germany that we've had. The stadiums were packed. You had great culture, great atmosphere in those games. And there are international fans who love it, who love seeing the game come to them so they could actually go to a game and take part in an experience. I think that culture is so cool. The one thing that we're also looking at is an international franchise, Goodell. He has said they have looked at an international franchise. They're open to the possibility of it. international Super Bowl is also a possibility. There's the jokes that Jaguars will move to London, and that might be a possibility because of the cons loving that idea lately. That's definitely a possibility. I could also see why it would be an appeal, and I think it's going to happen sooner or later. London, Berlin, maybe Mexico City. I do think those are inevitable. The question is when will that happen? I don't know exactly. That could take years because of just planning and logistics and what franchise are you going to move? Or are you going to make a new franchise? I don't think they will make a new one, but that would be very interesting if they did. Then you have, of course, the International Super Bowl. Like, there's some debate about that because, yes, it would be really cool to give the international fans the experience of having a spectacle like the Super Bowl. Like, Americans at this point, they've experienced the Super Bowl for the most part. If you haven't gone to it, you know what the spectacle is. It's huge. But then you have international fans who've watched it but never gotten to go to one. You'll have a chance to go if they have an international Super Bowl. That's really cool. That would be amazing for those fans to get to watch. If their team is in the Super Bowl, to go watch them live for a championship, no less. That's pretty cool. The slight counterpoint would also be you're not going to have the fans from the States be able to already buy a very expensive Super Bowl ticket and then pay for international travel, pay for lodging, pay for accommodations, food, all of that. That's going to be so expensive. But still, the chance to expose it on a global stage, like, that's pretty cool. Like, giving the spectacle to London or Berlin, which have both been huge hits for the NFL, I could see why they're thinking about it. It just feels like a matter of time to me. If this whole international thing keeps growing and growing, we have a lot of international games this year. We're having one in Ireland, we're having one in Brazil, we're having 3 in London, we're having one in Berlin, and we're having one in Spain now. This first ever game in Spain. So the game is growing, and we want more people to be able to globally appreciate the game. And some people just don't seem to care about that. Like, it, you're like, oh, it's an American thing. Well, yes, it's an American thing, but also it's something you want everyone to be able to appreciate and not just, well, you're just a dumb American for liking this sport when we have the real football. Well, no, then everyone can appreciate the game. Everyone can enjoy it and say, oh, that was really cool. I got to go see it. I fell in love with the game because of that, instead of having to travel all the way to the States and experience it after spending a ton of money. So, to go back to the beginning of this, I think the giving up one, maybe home game for that, and the Vikings are giving up 2, or 1, I should say. I think with the London game, and maybe it's 2 away games, but the Vikings are the first team ever to play back-to-back weeks in international stadiums, which I think is very fascinating that they're the first one to do it. You know what I would love to see? Because we talk about the culture and how it's so awesome, and I love it. I love hearing, like, the German fans singing Sweet Caroline or Country Roads, even in London. It's really cool to see those moments. What I would love to see would be something that someone in one of our shorts commented, a Far East game. Like, could you imagine, like, having a Tokyo game? That would be so cool. Like, having a game in Tokyo where already baseball is quite a thing there with Japan and the US, and then you get to have people exposed even more there to the game. I think that would be so cool because Tokyo is such a cool city and they have a lot of progressive things there. And I think having one game maybe or 2 would be so cool, and I would love to see the NFL expand to that. Expanding it to international teams, if we were had to have, cool atmospheres, cool fans, like from London or Toronto or Montreal, whatever city decides to be expanded into by the NFL, that would be really cool, I think. And it would be hard for whatever team is relocated, maybe, for the fan base. And I'm sure that would take some time to get used to, I'm sure. But I still think the international scene overall, it's spectacular and I love it. I'm glad there are more fans internationally that are getting exposed to American football because it's such a great game and it's so fun. All right, now that we've talked about all of that NFL stuff, let's head pitch side. So we have a breaking news moment here on the show. Whole city have decided to sack Robin Sellers. I talked about this the last episode. Why are they doing this? They are trying their hardest. They're dead set hardest to be Watford, and I do not like it. I will not understand it. Go check out my thoughts on that from last episode. I'm so frustrated by this. I don't understand why the Tigers would do it. You just barely stayed up in the championship. Why are you sacking the manager that helped you do that? Anyways, let's get to the playoff talk because the semifinals just finished a couple days ago. Bristol City, Sheffield United. I talked about this in the other episodes as well. I didn't think 6th was going to do very well in the playoffs. Whoever got 6th, whether it was Bristol City, whether it was Coventry, whether it was Middlesbrough, and yeah, Bristol City, they got their participation trophy. I hate to say it because they did so well to get to this point. They fought so hard, had a great season, and yet here they come into this tie with Sheffield United, and they get splattered and absolutely annihilated 6-0 on aggregate. It never felt close, except for maybe the first 40 minutes of the first leg. And after the red card, it never felt close. You felt Sheffield United just crushing Bristol City farther and farther into the dirt. And the second leg was even worse because they were at Bramall Lane. Of course, they had the home support going behind them. Sheffield United could have made that a 10-0 aggregate if they had been able to turn a few more shots on target. That would have been even uglier. And it just shows how good Sheffield United is, really. I don't think there's any reason to see why they shouldn't be favorites to go back up to the Prem, because they are so good. They're such a good team at both ends of the pitch. They're good offensively on the attack. They're good defensively. They have a great keeper, Michael Cooper. This is just a solid team overall, and you can see why they were in the title race. This tie showed it against a team that was contending for playoffs, and yet they never stood a chance. Now, the other side of the spectrum was an amazing semifinal tie that I don't think we're ever going to get over. And that was Sunderland and Coventry. What a tie. What a two legs that were just amazingly capped off. You had, of course, the first leg of this had the horrible mistake by Milan van Ewijk that gifts Sunderland the lead going into the second leg. And it was so delicately poised. Coventry wanted to win in that game, and they couldn't do it. And then they come into this game. Coventry dominates most of this game. They get a deserved lead in the 76th minute from after Mason Clark, and they go up. So that ties it on aggregate, and so it hits to extra time. You're thinking, oh, Coventry are going to go win this in extra time because of how dominant they've been this entire game. And they looked that way the first half of extra time. Then all of a sudden, something clicked for Sunderland, and they got on it in the second half of extra time. And they looked more dangerous than they had the entire game since the first leg. And then they get a few shots off, and Coventry even gets a shot off right before Bobby Thomas gives up a corner in the 122nd minute. And from that corner comes, from the last action of the game, Dan Ballard, who is the MVP of this entire tie, heads it in off the post. If that ball hits anywhere other part of the post than right on the underside of that post, the ball doesn't go in. We're headed to penalties. And yet it goes in, and it just breaks Coventry hearts. I feel for you, Sky Blue fans. That was heartbreaking. I couldn't imagine. I would have felt just as crummy. I really would have. Man, it was a great ending to a great tie. Dan Ballard, like I said, was the MVP of this tie because he headed everything out of that Sunderland box that he possibly could. He got to every single ball. He was such a great defensive stalwart for Sunderland. And that's one thing they can take into it. They have Dan Ballard heading into the final with Sheffield United, that he's going to be a great defensive presence. The question is going to be, will the rest of Sunderland's defense be able to hold up? Because if they play like this, like they did against Coventry in the second leg, they're not going to beat Sheffield United. Sheffield United are just too good. You cannot play like that against Sheffield United and expect to win. So Sunderland need to drastically improve if they want to go back to the Prem. This was a great tie, and Coventry City fought so hard. They felt like they deserved more than to go out like this, but that's the playoffs for you. That's just, it heartbreaks, and it crushes you so often. And that's how the season is. And now Coventry have to prepare for another year in the championship. What that's going to look like, who knows? And you can't expect to get back to this spot next season. We've seen teams like Hull City go from being seventh in the playoffs to relegation fodder now. It's crazy. Now, granted, we could probably say Coventry have better ownership, but still, you can't expect that you're going to be right back in the championship. And Sunderland fans, congratulations. This was a great success. You've been out of the Premier League for so long. You've really been just knocking on the door, begging to get back. And now you're there. You have the opportunity, so go try to take it. You have a indomitable task with the Blades at Wembley, but you get to go to Wembley And that's always a very cool thing to have in your back pocket, that you're going to Wembley. Not many teams get to do that too often, so enjoy it, both Sheffield United and Sunderland fans. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere. And with that, that concludes yet another episode of the Pitch Grid. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you know when we upload more football content. If you're on Spotify, a follow and a review is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to tune in for more insight into the chaos that is the championship and the NFL. Until next episode, stay sharp, y'all.